Well, the war in Gaza has had an enormous humanitarian impact, of course, particularly on children. The World Health Organization estimates that 42,000 people in Gaza suffered life-changing injuries during the war. That figure includes around 10,000 children. That's the estimate from the UN body. And 3,800 children need specialist treatment outside of Gaza. This month, the UN's World Health Organization stressed the urgent need for fuel, medical supplies, prosthetics and assistive devices, and called for medical evacuations to be prioritised. Dr. Zina Salman is co-founder of the non-profit organisation Heal Palestine, who's working with children in Gaza. Very good to have you with us, Doctor. Thank you for taking the time. Firstly, how is the team in Gaza at the moment that you're in contact with, and how are some of their patients?
Thank you so much for having me, Lucy, and for highlighting this very important topic. We have an incredible team on the ground that's been so resilient over the past 2+ years, but they're suffering. We have to be realistic, and they're suffering just like everyone else. When you have a team that's doing humanitarian aid work on the ground in Gaza and they themselves are facing starvation, we have a meeting with them and they say, I'm sorry, I can't respond. I can barely think, I haven't eaten since yesterday. You realize the reality of this. Even the aid workers are suffering. Everyone on the ground is suffering, 100% of people.
And Zina, their patients, the children particularly, hard for them to be resilient when, there's just not the things that are needed to help them get through the hours and the days. I mean, literally.
Absolutely. I mean, as a pediatrician, children's health comes first in my mind. And we've seen a population of children, as you mentioned at the beginning, who've been not only physically injured, but have endured so much, the really unimaginable trauma over the past 2 years, but even prior to that. We've seen children who've lost family members. We have the largest population of child amputees in modern history. So kids who've lost 1, 2, 3, and 4 limbs. We see children who've been displaced multiple times from their homes, and really have seen the unimaginable. And so it's really hard to think of them. They are resilient. They're a resilient population. They shouldn't have to be. No child should have to endure all of this.
Zina, given the level of need that is required, how do you begin to prioritise or assess which children get to be evacuated?
That's really the job of the physicians on the ground who are seeing these thousands and thousands of injured adults and children. At Heal Palestine, we've worked very hard to do evacuations in partnership with the World Health Organization, who's been incredible on the ground. We've brought out 63 children to date, the vast majority of them, but not all of them are amputees. Many of them have other injuries or even congenital defects or diseases that they don't have access to care for because of the destruction of the healthcare system. Prioritization is incredibly difficult. How can you decide who's worse, a child with cancer or a child with heart disease? A child who's missing 1 limb or 2, it's really difficult to make these decisions. What we do see is that every single one of these children, whether they are remain in Gaza or the quote unquote lucky ones who are able to make it out to some semblance of medical care, mental health care, and more, remain incredibly traumatized through all of this and what they've seen and endured.
And how do you begin the healing on that front in terms of what they've been through psychologically?
So the ones who've been able to come out, who've been lucky to come out, we are able to provide mental health services for, in addition to the medical care that they need. We've seen incredible things, children who are screaming in the middle of the night, who are bedwetting, who can't get through, a day of school, whose behaviors have changed. We know that over 90% of the population is depressed. Over 80% has anxiety symptoms, and PTSD is something that everyone talks about, but I think the reality is that there's no post-trauma for any of these children, whether they're in Gaza or out. It's chronic traumatic stress. We know that even the kids who've come out, who we've begun to do mental health care for, and we begin that treatment in Gaza because we have a mental health team in Gaza who takes care of these children, provides therapy for them, group therapy, individualized therapy, art therapy, all different forms. In Egypt, when they've been able to come out through the Rafah border, which still we haven't seen be open, We have a mental health team who sees them there as well. And then when they were coming to the US for temporary medical care in the United States, we were doing mental health treatment for them there. But the reality is that they continue to be traumatized. I'm thinking of a little boy who we had here for a prosthetic leg. He lost his leg in a bombing. He came with his mother. She left behind 6 children and her husband. And while they were here, he'd finally completed his care. They were due to fly back to fly to Egypt in 2 days to be close to the Gaza border, which they did leave eventually. But just before they left, right after he had completed treatment, a bomb struck their home. His father was killed. Two of his siblings were injured, severely injured. And that's the kind of trauma that these kids continue to endure and their families continue to endure.
That is quite the story to end the interview on, but incredible work you and the team are doing. Dr. Zena Salman, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me.